Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mark Headley, and today I will be joined by my lovely wife Claire.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me on, honey.
Absolutely, we're gonna do I don't we can't I haven't decided if this will be a Scientology stories or if we'll just make this a whole new series. I'm thinking we're gonna make this a new series called Scientology Executives, and we asked you guys in the comments to let us know what you think we should cover on the channel, and resoundingly, we heard about doing the private investigators. And by the time this airs, the first episode of the Private Investigators, Scientology's Private Investigators series, should have aired. But another thing that we got a lot of requests for were specifically a video about Jenny Linson. And we have been getting requests to do a video about Jenny Linson through the email, on Twitter, on the comments on YouTube. People really want to know about this Jennifer Linson executive that worked for David Miscavige for many, many years. So, without further ado, here we go. This is going to be our Scientology executives, Jenny Linson. And why don't you? I mean, we did a bit of both Claire and I did a little bit of research for this episode, and we both normally our paths didn't cross, right? For the most part,
Yep.
Claire was in different parts of Golden Era when I worked at Golden Era Productions, and then she got promoted out of Golden Era Productions into Religious Technology Center. So for many, many years, our paths very rarely crossed in terms of working at the international headquarters of Scientology. But in order to do this episode, we did a bit of research, and so why don't you give us like Jenny's sort of timeline, if you will?
Sure. And keep in mind, to our knowledge, she is still one of David Miscavige's top henchwomen, henchmen, whatever you want to call it, as of today. But so Jenny's timeline is joined the Sea Organization at the age of 19 years old, which was in March 1985. Okay, so as of now, she's almost been in the Sea Organization for going on 30 years. Um, I don't have much information as to how she got into Scientology, but her mother, Lil Linson, was a Scientologist. So at the age of 19, one can probably guess that she got in as a child, but there you have it. She married Tom DeVocht in June of 1986. So, and the first time she met David Miscavige and Shelley Miscavige was when she was working at the international headquarters in 1986. So she was there. Then at some point, I think 87, 88, she was sent to the Freewinds when that whole all the work was being done to set up the Freewinds originally. Jenny worked on setting up the Freewinds ship organization, which is one of the organizations on the ship that specifically takes care of all the lodging, the meals, all the services for the public Scientologists or civilian Scientologists who went to the Freewinds to do Scientology services. That was when she first had a lot of close interaction working directly with David Miscavige on that project. Then subsequent to that, in the early 90s, to my knowledge, she was brought to LA and was working on setting up a similar organization for Celebrity Center, and it's called the Manor Hotel. So getting all the staff who would service the hotel, the meals, etc. Somewhere in the early 90s, she became the head of the Commodore's Messenger organization in Clearwater. And so she served in that position at least until approximately late 90s, 2000. That's when I first met her, was in 1996, but we'll get to that. Then when she was brought to the headquarters again, was in, again, late 90s, 2000 approximately. And then she became the management position over Flag, and which is, the headquarters in Clearwater, Florida. And then approximately in 2002 was when she first became the head of Commodore's Messenger Org at the INT base headquarters. So that was kind of the top dog position. Watchdog Committee chairman is also what that position is referred to as. And again, I had extensive interaction with her during those years. And she was on and off that post until about 2011. Then subsequent, after we left, she became part of David Miscavige's personal staff.
Nice. Okay.
There you have it. Overview, timeline for Jenny Linson as we
Yeah.
know it.
And the other thing that I wanted to say was the organizations that run Scientology are part of what's called the Commodore's Messenger organization. And so when Jenny was at the INT base originally in the 80s, she was likely part of the Commodore's Messenger organization. And that when she went out to go do these different things, she was likely operating as the local Commodore's Messenger in that area when she's setting up the flag service ship organization at the Free Winds, or whether she was setting up the Manor Hotel at the Celebrity Center. And when she went back to Clearwater and was in the she was again the CMO, and I think she was also another post. Her and that what you remember that other gal that was there?
Angie Blankenship.
That's right, Angie Blankenship. So between her and Angie Blankenship, when they were in Clearwater, they were sort of the head honchos in Clearwater that David Miscavige would tell things to do. And that is when I first met her, was when I went to Florida in 1993. I became part of the events crew, and the events that Scientology would put on, they put on these 7 different events all throughout the year. And many of those took place in Florida at the Fort Harrison Hotel. That there's an auditorium there, and we would put on a live event, and they'd pack 1,000 or 1,500 Scientologists in this tiny auditorium. And when we would go there as the event crew, we would usually be there for a week before the event, setting everything up, setting up the stage and the backdrops and the audio and the video and the cameras. We would shoot this thing like it was the Super Bowl. And the video truck that would come to the Fort Harrison and park behind the Fort Harrison was sometimes the same people and the same truck that would have done a football game or an NFL game or the Super Bowl. And so we would stay in Florida for that whole week that we were setting up the event. And we would stay at this place called the Hacienda Gardens, or just the Hacienda. Is it called the Hacienda Gardens or Hacienda? We just called it
It's
the
called
Hacienda.
Hacienda Gardens, but as with everything, the terms get confused and complicated, and so it would get referred to as Hacienda.
Yeah, just Hacienda. I'm going to the Hacienda. Or where are you staying?
Yeah.
I'm staying at the Hacienda.
Yep.
So every morning, the event crew would pile into these vans, and we would go from the Hacienda, which is, I want to say it's like 10 or 15 minutes from the Flag Land Base, which is all of those giant buildings in downtown Clearwater on Fort Harrison Street. And so we would go in this van, and every morning we would see this couple running out of their apartment at the last possible second, like getting dressed on the way out. And we would see them every day as we were driving in. Like, if muster at the base was at like 8:30, the bus for the event crew, I mean, we didn't have to really be anywhere at an exact time, that we didn't have a muster necessarily that we had to go to all the time. We just had to be there before David Miscavige showed up. And so we'd leave at like 8:20 to get to the base by 8:30. And every time we'd be pulling out, we'd see this couple. And I said, who's that? And they go, oh, that's Jenny and Tom DeVocht. They used to be at the base, and then now they're working down here, and they're in the CMO or whatever. And be like, okay, wow, these guys are like really cutting it close. And sometimes Jenny would literally come running out in like her undergarments and be putting her shirt on and getting fixing her hair or whatever, running to the car just in time. And Tom and Jenny had a car that they would drive to and from the Sea Org berthing. So
It wasn't a personal car though, right? It was owned by the organization.
yeah, I think so. I don't think I mean, I don't know. I just know they had, but it was one of these Acuras. Whatever David Miscavige was driving was the cool thing. And then sometimes the CMO units would get those same cars so that if he had to drive anywhere there, when he got there, he'd get the car that he liked. And he liked this, I want to say it was like an Acura TL, if that makes any sense, if that's a thing. Um, but that was the very first time that I knew, okay, that's who Jenny Linson is. At the time, her name was Jenny DeVocht,
Yep.
right? Tom DeVocht,
Yep.
Jenny DeVocht. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning too, because it's confusing by terminology. Commodore's messenger org originally was set up to get Hubbard's orders done because he was referred to as the Commodore. But of
Yeah.
course, he passed away in 1986. Thereafter, the CMO, Commodore's Messenger Organization, was really the execution arm to get David Miscavige's orders done. And that's how Jenny ended up working so extensively and closely with David Miscavige from her position in the Commodore's Messenger Org. But that said, so yeah, my first knowledge about Jenny Linson, Jenny DeVocht, started in March of 1996 when I was sent to Clearwater as in training to be a representative of Religious Technology Center. That's when my path first crossed, because we were set up and working out of the same offices where the Commodore's Messenger Org was for Clearwater. So Jenny Linson, Angie Blankenship, Tom DeVocht were the key top executives at that time in the CMO CW, Commodore's Messenger Org Clearwater. And so I think the first significant events that I knew that Jenny was very closely involved in was the wrongful death of Lisa McPherson, who died at the Fort Harrison Hotel at the end of 1995. And Jenny was very involved in overseeing the fallout from that and reporting directly to David Miscavige on what was happening, what they were doing, what handlings they were taking, because of course it was a very serious and tragic death. Yeah, so
That's
that
also,
was
I think, Angie also, I think, that's where her and Angie Blankenship kind of came on the radar because Dave started dealing with them on a regular basis.
yes,
Throughout
and
the
he
Golden Age of Tech and Lisa McPherson, David Miscavige was spending most of his time in Clearwater. We didn't see him at the base a lot during those years because he was just living in Clearwater trying to handle the Lisa McPherson case, the wrongful death lawsuit that was filed against Scientology. And then also because he was there so much and he was kind of running that is when he started getting all these crazy ideas about this thing called the golden age of technology. And that is when he was sort of like piloting that and testing that and coming up with these different ideas. And that's how that was my second interaction with Jenny, because when he was there in Florida, he was showing films and showing videos to the crew all the time. So we'd be producing films or videos back at Golden Era Productions, and he would be telling us what he wanted. And then we would send those videos or films to him, and then he would show them to the crew. And at one point, he had asked for me to come there and upgrade all these different audiovisual lines all over the property. And I did all of his offices. I upgraded his office systems. I upgraded his system. He has like an apartment at the hacienda, and I was upgrading that. And there was a video that he had spent weeks and months and whatever making this mix down for this video perfect. It had to be like this more than any other film that we had ever done, he was very, very involved with the mix down for this. It just was going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And one of the things that he wanted it to have a lot of bass. And so we were about to show this to the crew of the Clearwater, that location, the FLB or the FSO, whatever you want to call it. And right before we, like 5 or 10 minutes before we're about to show this thing, Jenny Linson comes into the equipment balcony, is where all the mix boards and the projectors and all the equipment that ran the whole auditorium was up in the balcony. And she came up into the balcony. She goes, I want to hear it. I want to hear the mix down. And we were like, what? Like, she does this. We don't even know this person. We're like, you don't have anything to do with audio. You wouldn't know if it was good or bad anyway. And you're going to listen to it on some headphones. It's mixed for this theater. And it was a whole thing. Anyway, she's like, no, I want to hear it before you guys play it. So in order to play something in that auditorium, we had to mute the subwoofers, because even if we turned down the faders to what went out to the auditorium, the volume knobs for all of the sound in the auditorium, even if we turned those down, the subwoofers would still go, and because they're preset, they just get whatever they get, and that they're always on. So we had to mute those so that when we played the video for her, it wouldn't play where all the people were filled up in the auditorium waiting to see this video. Anyway, so she listened to it for like 2 minutes and she's like, okay, good. That sounds great. And we're just like, whatever. Anyway, so we pushed the faders back up for the video or the film or whatever it was. And then she left. Okay, good. Then David Miscavige goes up on stage and he says, hey, I just been working on this thing. Da 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 da. He's telling them all the exciting stories, the behind the scenes. And he says, and now, and then he introduces the video and then we play it. And then as soon as it starts playing, we're like, okay, we're good. Everything's good. Everybody's happy. Anyway, I put my feet up on the mix board. We're sitting up there waiting. This thing's playing. And David Miscavige busts into the balcony and he's like, what the hell? And we're like, what? And he goes, there's no subs. And we're like, oh no. When she came up, we muted those subs before we played it. We didn't punch the subs back in. So there was no sub. So
Yeah.
David Miscavige spent a month mixing this thing, making the lower frequencies perfect, and then Jenny Linson comes in, and anyway, so what they refer to that after I did that, I was sent back to the int base in a body bag. That's what they call it when you get busted by David Miscavige, and you get sent back to the headquarters. That's called going back to gold in a body bag.
Yeah,
Anyway,
and not only that, David Miscavige announced that he did that at a subsequent briefing that he did at the headquarters, saying, I sent Mark Headley back to this property in a body bag.
yeah, he told that whole story that I just told. He told that to the entire int base, and how I basically like I popped his balloon on his big moment that he was going to explain how awesome the subwoofers were in this video. Anyway, and when he came up to the booth, I was like, well, we'll just punch him out. He's like, you can't turn them on now. It'll blow everybody away. Anyway, so that was my second Jenny Linson experience.
All right. And so, yes, my next interactions were continuing from March 1996. I spent about almost a year in Clearwater as part of Religious Technology Center. We were overseeing the golden age of tech, the training. So there were staff there from all over the world doing the training, and our job was to make sure it all got done. And so I had many interactions with Jenny during that period, where she attended meetings with David Miscavige about various matters that he was overseeing at Flag, because as long as he was there, he was going to be involved in everything. And he was meeting with the registrars, for example. Those are the people that get money from civilian Scientologists, and he was demanding that Flag get up to $1 million of income per week. Yes, exactly. Anyway, so yeah, Jenny was everywhere. Anytime David Miscavige was anywhere in Clearwater at any of the organizations, Jenny was always there attending the meetings with him.
Yeah, I want to say probably in after late 1999 or in the late 90s. I'm pretty sure that's when Jenny either came and then Angie came right after. But he would always talk when he was at the international base in the late 90s. He would always tell us about when he goes to Florida, he's got people there that just get his stuff done, and that no matter what he asks, it just gets done. And he told us this story about a piece of plexiglass that he had asked to be put somewhere, and he walked through it like 9 a.m. and he said, "Oh, you know what they should have? They should have a piece of plexiglass here, so people aren't bothering that person, and they have to kind of go around, and that's the way we want them to go, or something." And then he had come back by after lunch, and the plexiglass was installed, and there was a sign there and everything. And he was like, "When I ask for a piece of plexiglass in Clearwater, they give me a piece of." He's like, "Here, it's like, do we have the money? Can we get it approved? There's all this bureaucracy. Well, that's not per the space plan. There's not supposed to be plexi." And he told us, I can't even get a piece of plexiglass here. And that is when, shortly after that, he had been threatening, he's going to bring these people here. He's going to bring, and he had done this before. He brought people, big shots in from other places. And then when they get to the base, they're schmuckos like the rest of us within a few months. I want to say that's when he introduced Angie and Jenny, and we were in a meeting in the in what was called the lower lodge conference room, and it's right next to the dining hall. And he would sort of set up shop in there, and then he just have meetings with people all over the international base. He just have meetings there all day long. And so if there was a meeting that had to do with audiovisual production, then I would end up at that meeting. And sometimes those meetings had gold executives or gold production personnel and int executives, so like the CMO people or the RTC people. And we were in a meeting, I'm pretty sure it was an event meeting, and it was with international management people, RTC people, golden era production people, and the international management public relations office that put on the events. And we were all together in a meeting, and Angie and Jenny were there. And he was cursing, and he was like telling people to suck his big fat this, and cursing at people, calling people MFers and sea suckers, and just in the meeting. And when he goes down to Florida, he didn't generally use that language when he would meet with Florida people, but at the base, he let his hair down. And they looked like they were in shock that he was talking to the CO, CMO International, and the CO, the commanding officer, Golden Air. They were like, and when he saw that they were shocked, he goes, oh yeah, these guys are hardened criminals. When you talk to these executives, this is David Miscavige. He's like, when you talk to these executives, you really have to impinge. These Sea Org members are the most counter intention suppressive Sea Org members on the planet. And Jenny and Angie were like, what? And then he told us more stories about how they were so awesome and that they're going to be following him around, and they're going to be getting his list of all the things he's ordered us to do, and they were going to be his henchmen at the international base. And I want to say that was late 90s, early 2000s.
Yes. Yes. So, and I remembered more since I made my notes here. But so yes, I was brought back to work at the headquarters from Clearwater, Florida in approximately February of 1997. And then I was in correction specifically for the management executives. Somewhere shortly thereafter, Jenny Linson was brought to the headquarters, and she became the head position Watchdog Committee member for overseeing all of Flag and also the Free Winds. And so,
WDFSO or she was
yes,
WDFSO and FSSO.
that's right. She was
Flag,
covering both.
yeah, Flag Service Organization, that's Clearwater, and then Flagship Service Organization is that cruise ship called the Free Winds.
That's right. So, and the Flagship Service Organization, which delivered the upper level of OT, operating Thetan level 8. Anyway, so approximately 1997, like later in 1997, was the first time that I became aware that Shelley Miscavige was very concerned about Jenny's interactions with David Miscavige. And there were a few reasons for this. Jenny would, on the once a week, we would dress in civilian clothing, normal people clothes. And Jenny would always wear really low cut tops and with her makeup done and her hair done and all this. And so there were a few instances where Shelley Miscavige really took issue with this. One where she went so far as telling Jenny to her face that she looked like a WH word. And she was convinced that Jenny had had intentions to start something up with David Miscavige. That's what Shelley firmly believed. And she had Jenny Linson interrogated multiple times about this and if she had done anything with David Miscavige and what her intentions were, and on and on and on. Even so far as one time, Shelley had Jenny interrogated to see if she'd been sent in to destroy Scientology by getting it on with David Miscavige. I don't know what else to say. That was the reality of the situation. But yeah, so even back then, so this is 97 time period. Already then, Shelley was very convinced that David Miscavige was up to no good.
Yeah, I want to say that when she and Angie got there, they the women that at the base, they didn't really get dolled up. Like they would put makeup on, but they weren't going all out. Like it wasn't like, hey, look at me. That was definitely not a thing. So when they showed up there and they started dressing like look at me, it was sort of like that's not that's not how the women at this place do that. This is a little, you guys are like, you guys might be showing a little bit too much. Okay. There might be, so I think that was sort of Shelley was like, yeah, this is too much. I remember it. It was obvious that Jenny was dressed in that way. And there weren't other women there that were doing that besides her and Angie. And a few of the RTC gals sometimes would get a little hussied up, but not overboard like Jenny was doing.
Right.
So I remember that was a big thing. It was like, yeah, Jenny's not coming to it. Like it would literally, we'd have a meeting and be like, Jenny's not coming. Like they would have a meeting and she just wouldn't get the call because Shelley was interfering in like trying to game the system. And I want to say that she also got rid of, there was another female that was one of David Miscavige's personal stewards at one time. Georgiana Irons.
Mm-hmm.
And she got sent to the Freewinds to be a steward because Shelley was like, it's too much. And she was doing the same thing. She was bouncing her assets around in front of Dave a lot. And Shelley was like, nope, you're going to another state now.
Right.
You're going to another country if Shelley can help it.
Yep.
So I'm trying to think. That's also when we had, it's funny that you say that because I want to say right after they got to the base and they were the head, they were like her and Angie Blankenship were going to be the big boss bitches of the base and they were going to, get us to get all this stuff done. One day I was in sets and props and I got told, hey, I got called by RTC saying there's 2 people coming to work for you guys in sets. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay. And this happened all the time. Whenever an executive gets busted out of the upper echelons of Scientology management, they usually get sent to Golden Era to do like grunt work, we called it, or the stuff that not even the guys in Golden Era Productions wanted to do. So whatever we were putting off that we didn't want to have to do, that was part of our job, when these guys would show up, they would get to do that. And that was sort of a system.
Yeah, and that was the requirement from David Miscavige too. When somebody was sent to do heavy manual labor, it had to be like tasks that were just the worst tasks you could possibly come up with.
Yeah. So when we went over to the sets and props area and then these 2 people showed up, it was Angie Blankenship and Jenny DeVocht, and they're wearing like, shorts and t-shirts and they've got gloves, like they're ready to work. And I thought, wow, that didn't take long. You guys are going to do Jesus paint today. And they were like, what? And we're like, you're gonna clean out some buckets. We got paint. We would get sets and props. We would get paint from donation centers. So like if you want to get rid of oil or paint or like any kind of hazardous material, you take it to one of these places and then they recycle it. And we would just go to that place and just get all the paint. We'd say, what paint do you have? And they just give us hundreds of buckets of 5-gallon buckets or gallon buckets of paint. And sometimes this paint had been sitting around for 20 or 30 years. And so when we would get it, we would mix it all together. Or we would kind of find different colors and we'd make this color out of all these colors or whatever. But it was free paint. And so, but some of these buckets had been sitting around for a couple years or decades. And so when we got those paints, nobody wanted to open them because they stunk so bad. And we called that, you open up the bucket and you'd be, oh, Jesus. So we called that the Jesus paint. So whenever the executives would come down to Golden Era, we'd be like, you guys are going to be working on Jesus paint. And they would open those. And if the paint was good and not all dried out and chunky or whatever, if it was decent paint, then we'd have them filter it and do all this stuff and put it in new cans or whatever. But it was just one of those things. Once these boss babes or boss bitches or whatever you want to call them show up to the base and they're supposed to wreak havoc, it's like, yeah, you give it a few months, you'll be cleaning paint buckets for me soon enough.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So from 1998 until 2005, during those years was when I was attending most of the meetings that David Miscavige had with management. And Jenny was always at those meetings from whatever position she was holding. First, it was the Watchdog Committee member overseeing Clearwater, Florida. And then starting in around late 90s, early 2000s, Jenny took on the head role of WDC chairman, COCMO. And that was an on again, off again position. It was like, depending on what was happening, who was doing what, Jenny would get busted one week, removed, and then the next week she'd be dusted off and put back on to doing that post.
Yeah. There was one guy who held that post for decades or many, many years in a row, and his name was Mark Yeager. And Mark Yeager was CO, CMO int, I want to say for most of the 90s. And then it was like there could be a new CO, CMO int every week if you wanted. I mean, Mark Ingber was CMO int, and Mark Yeager and Jenny DeVocht. I think Mike Rinder was CMO int at one point for some
He
time.
was. Yeah, he was.
There was just like it, and it got to even Wendell Reynolds was in Financeder, but then he was going to be CMO int, and then it was just it got to a point where it was a joke. If you were if you were the commanding officer of the Commodore's Messenger Organization International, it was probably going to be for another week or two until the next guy was.
Yeah.
But I remember that because I want to say in the 2003, 2004, when this kind of whole thing started getting created. First, it was the SP room, and then it was the whole, and then it was just, if you're going up to int, it was just like, oh, great, I got to go up to int. But I remember when I was last there in 2004, I escaped January of 2005. So the last few months that when I ever had to go up there, a lot of the times Jenny was being the boss of all of the SPs in the whole. She was fighting to be the boss. So somebody had to be the official representative of all these suppressive executives. And because Dave didn't want to hear from all of them, if he gave them an order, then they would have to have some sort of meeting and decide, okay, who's going to represent us, that he's not going to just not even look at the dispatch. It has to be somebody that he may want to hear from. And a lot of those times, Jenny was one of those top people that would be the person.
Yep, absolutely. It bears mentioning too, I think, it occurred to me while you were talking about that. Jenny is also one of a very small handful of women who were ever allowed to speak at public Scientology events. There was Karen Hollander,
Rena Weinberg.
Rena Weinberg, Jenny Linson, and I don't think any other women were ever.
After we left, I think they let Lori Zern from Able International. I think they let her do some stuff. And when we had certain events, like if we were opening an organization and the executive director of that organization was a female, then that person would speak at that event, but not at an international event that was at the Shrine or Ruth Eckerd Hall or one of these
Right.
places. I'm going to say at most of those, it was either Karen Hollander, Rena. I don't remember Jenny doing any of the big events that we did. I don't remember. Maybe she did Florida events, but
Yeah, I think she did some of the events, like a night on the free winds for June 6th, the
that's
maiden
true.
voyage event.
That's true. I could see her doing one of those. The other thing that a lot of people may or may not know about Jenny, if people know about this person, then they might know this, but her father is a big Hollywood movie producer named Art Linson, and her brother is also a film and TV producer. And Art did movies like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Heat and Fight Club and he's done a lot of big movies with a lot of Hollywood people. And eventually, I think these days he does Yellowstone. That's one of the big shows that he has now is Yellowstone and other Paramount properties that he's involved in. I think he does another one, the Mayor of Kingstown. I think, is that what's called? Is it Kingstown? I don't remember. Anyway, I think he produces that show. And Jenny, at one point, I don't remember exactly when it happened. I want to say 2000s, early 2000s. There was a Scientology Ponzi scheme guy named Reed Slatkin.
Oh, that was 1996.
Okay, good. So he had a ton of Scientologists had given money to him to invest, and it was just a big Ponzi scheme, and he was ripping everybody off. But I want to say the Linsons had about $2 million in there with him. And because Jenny was a Sea Org member, a lot of the Sea Org members were being told, you've got to get this money out because this guy's he's being investigated. He's about to get busted. You got to get all your money out of there because it's a whole big scam that he's been running. And the story that David Miscavige told is that Jenny said no. And that she was like, no, I'm making a ton of money off this. I'm not taking my money out. And it was like, but he's going to, I don't remember exactly how it went down, but I do remember that David Miscavige joking that her family lost $2 million because she wanted to make money off of the scammer guy. And I think between Art Linson and his wife, I think they lost over $2 million in that scam.
Man.
And
But
and
that you bring up a good.
supposedly that was Jenny's money that he had invested for her if she ever got out of the Sea Org. And I think that was the thing that David Miscavige was poking fun at. Like, now you're never going to be able to leave because you don't have any money. You had $2 million, and now because you didn't tip off your parents to get their money out, now you got nothing.
Yep. And Jenny also is different than a lot of other Sea Org members in that she had money. She had inheritance money, and to my knowledge, she blamed that loss on her ex-husband Tom DeVocht as soon as he got out of there. Like she blamed him losing all that money through the Reed Slatkin investments on Tom DeVocht to try and to lie about him. Anyway, so moving on. So you made your escape on January 4th, 2005. So the craziness that ensued in January 2005 was next level. By this point, I had been banished to the hole as well. That took place in September 2004 because I refused to divorce you. And so now I was working in the same offices with Jenny Linson day and night, barely ever going home, as I'm sure you remember. And so in January, I think it was, I want to say it was around it was mid-January somewhere. Anyway, on a Sunday, uh, David Miscavige came down around lunchtime, and I think Jenny and Angie had been working on preparing a speech for David Miscavige to do at the Fort Harrison annual gala, which was intended to win over all the local officials. They'd bring in celebrities to dance with the officials' wives, whatever. Safe pointing, as it's called in Scientology. At least as I remember, this is what this meeting was about. And it could have also been other management issues that Jenny was supposed to take care of. She had stayed up all night Saturday night working on this. And so David Miscavige showed up at the meeting. Jenny had had no sleep, looked terrible, big dark circles under her eyes. And every single response that she gave to David Miscavige infuriated him more and more and more. And finally, he was like, "That's it. This woman is psychotic. What is going on?" And Jenny spits out, "I haven't slept in 4 days, sir," or something like this. So David Miscavige then orders all of management, which is around this, I want to say it's like 80 people. He says, "That's it. You are going to make Jenny sleep." And so they, and he was like, "And nobody is to do anything else until this order has been complied with." So we were in this big conference room in the double wide trailer at the headquarters. They
Which was called
dragged,
the hole. That was the
yep,
where the hole was the where
yep,
this took place was in the hole.
that's right. They dragged in a bed into the conference room, shut all the windows and put all the blinds down and made it dark. And then everybody had to stand and watch Jenny sleep, which I think she slept for like at least 15 hours. I mean, starting at like 3 p.m. on Sunday, actually, she slept through till the next day. And we all had to stand there the entire time while Jenny's sleeping. Nobody was allowed to leave until a compliance report could be sent to David Miscavige to say, "Sir, Jenny has now slept." It was absolute insanity.
That is crazy. Yeah. The other thing I want to say about Jenny is that I know that I personally attended meetings that Jenny Linson attended where David Miscavige got physically violent with people. And there were also meetings where David Miscavige would be like, "You guys never put this guy's ethics in. You guys never do anything to anybody. It's always me who has to put it." And then people would start screaming and punching or smacking the person that he was saying that we never did that to. And so there were times when not only Jenny was in a meeting where David Miscavige assaulted somebody, she was in meetings where other Sea Org members were assaulting other Sea Org members. And in a lot of cases, she was easily one of the main contenders when it came to screaming and yelling at somebody for David Miscavige. Or if David Miscavige, I will note this, David Miscavige, I never physically saw him attack a female, but he would on many occasions get other female executives to attack or to yell or to scream at a female so that his hands weren't soiled by that. And Jenny would be one of those people that would get in the face of Lisa Schroer or Liz Ingber or any of these other female executives that was on Dave's bad side. Jenny was there. And I know you were in many more meetings that involved Jenny where other Sea Org members, where he would assault somebody in CMO Int or in another organization that I wasn't in that meeting with.
Yeah. Yeah, and to reiterate, of course, because we get asked this a lot, nobody on that property was able to call 911. Nobody was free to leave. There was 24/7 security guards to prevent you from leaving. Many times people were prevented from leaving. Just for context, was the environment that was at that headquarters. It's a remote compound in the middle of nowhere, quite literally. So, but yes, no, I was in many meetings where Jenny was there as well. witnessing David Miscavige physically assault staff, including Mike Rinder, Mark Yeager, Guillaume Leserve, Norman Starkey. I mean, we could go on and on and on.
Well, the reason I wanted to bring that up is because we do have a document, and this is how this video is going to end today. We're definitely going to do a part 2 on Jenny Linson, because we've got some crazy videos of Jenny as well. But the reason I wanted to bring this up is because Jenny is now saying this is a declaration of Jennifer Elise Linson. And do you have it there? Do you want to read this?
I do. Yes.
Okay.
I, Jennifer Elise Linson, declare and state as follows. 1, I'm a resident of California, a United States citizen, and I'm 43 years old. I am of sound mind and am fully qualified to make the following statements. 2, I have prepared this declaration by choice, not compulsion, as an exercise of my own free will and without any pressure, coercion, or duress concerning its content or preparation from anyone. 3, I am a senior executive of the Church of Scientology International. 4, I've been in the employ of the church since March 28, 1985, when I began my career in the Sea Organization at the age of 19 years old. 5, I married Tom DeVocht on June 28, 1986. 6, I have known Mr. David Miscavige for 22 and a half years. Mr. Miscavige, in the years I have known him, has treated me with kindness, compassion, and understanding that knows no bounds. I've spent more time with Mr. Miscavige and his direct assistants over the years than any other executive in the church. 7, I have never experienced nor witnessed any violence from Mr. Miscavige toward anyone, including Tom DeVocht.
This is craziness.
That is a doozy. I mean, we could easily find 30 people who witnessed David Miscavige. Easily 30, probably more, just like off the top of my head without even thinking.
Yeah. And this is how Scientology gets away with this in legal cases and in lawsuits and when they get with law enforcement, is if there's 10 people there and David Miscavige assaulted Tom DeVocht, well, they've got 7 of those people are still working there, and they get them all to do affidavits. So it's now Tom DeVocht and maybe 1 or 2 other people's word against these other 7 people that they still have working there. And they'll put nonsense like this in an affidavit. It's not if you're in the Sea Organization and you work for David Miscavige, you're going to lie however you need to lie to protect David Miscavige. So when she says, I've never experienced nor witnessed any violence from Mr. Miscavige towards anyone, besides the 1,000 people that she witnessed David Miscavige violence towards. It's the most insane thing when you read this. Is there more? You want to read it?
Yep. Yeah. Then this is what Scientology calls an acceptable truth, quote unquote, which is by definition a lie. 8, I first met Mr. David Miscavige with his wife, Shelley, during the Christmas holiday season in 1986, when the staff of the International Base and Golden Era Productions went to Big Bear to ski and celebrate, along with the author services executives and staff. Tom introduced me to Mr. and Mrs. Miscavige as his new wife. They were very warm and cordial and went out of their way to meet me, having known Tom since the early 80s. Tom was very proud to introduce me and to let me know how much he cared for and respected Mr. Miscavige, and how Mr. Miscavige and his wife took him under their wing when he first arrived to the INT base a few years prior, and brought him with them to a football game over Christmas, and saw that he was not alone, as he was new and knew few people. 9, my first working acquaintance with Mr. Miscavige was in 1988, when I was on a project to establish the Freewinds Ship Organization aboard our newly purchased and renovated cruise ship, Freewinds, prior to and during her maiden voyage. I think the maiden voyage was June of 1988, if I remember correctly. I was working to establish the ship executives and crew onto their new posts, and Mr. Miscavige came aboard the ship. He granted me the utmost care and importance on my job, and I knew then that this was an executive like no other. He was interested in every detail and proud of the accomplishment of the staff and let us know. That was my experience then and continued to be my experience for the years to come. Talk about cognitive dissonance, huh?
When we do this Scientology spy files, whenever a Scientologist falsely blows smoke up another Scientologist, we take a drink, just so you know. So
Oh,
whenever Jenny does that, that's what I've been doing in the background there, folks who don't know the inside joke there. Um, the utmost care and importance on my job. In all of the years that I worked for David Miscavige, this is not my experience on any realm or factor. There's like this is a great work of fiction, folks. This is a
yeah.
great work of
I
fiction.
would even question whether Jenny actually even personally wrote this.
Exactly.
We'll get to the signature page,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, I never saw any member of the Sea organization writing an affidavit except Mike Rinder and Warren McShane. Those two are exceptions to that, but I'm just saying. Okay, 10. I was removed by Commodore's messenger organization, CMO International, from my position in CMO Clearwater and worked for some months in the Fort Harrison Hotel. Translated, she was busted and put on heavy manual labor, right? In the interim, a project came up to establish the Manor Hotel at Celebrity Center International. I was called by international management to head that project. Translation, she was removed from heavy manual labor and brought in to come and save the day. Okay. I was called by international management to head that project, which I did. During this project, Mr. Miscavige came to the Manor Hotel with Mr. Norman Starkey to see what had been done and ran into me. He was warm and effusive as ever and happy to see me and what was being done. I've never seen David Miscavige be effusive,
No,
nor warm for that matter, actually, now that I think about it. Okay. In the,
it's a typo.
oh, hold
Just
on a
read
minute.
it
Oh,
before the.
there's a bunch of missing pages. Anyway, to get to the,
Oh,
yeah, look, it goes from page 2 to page 18. So folks, we'll try and track down the rest of this.
yeah. We
Anyway.
don't need to read 18 pages of this.
Oh God, no. Okay. 62. Yeah. So see, 62 points of an affidavit. Holy
Oh
moly.
my god. Wha- wha-
I just noticed this. But we'll end with this part. We have incredible new services for new public coming out in October and much more. The future is brighter than it has ever been. 62. It also so happens that our greatest expansion is coincident with the departure of criminals notorious in the Sea Org for being such, and now persona non grata forever. As a comment, it's fascinating how that exact language matches what we witnessed David Miscavige telling Jenny Linson about the executives of Scientology for years.
yeah.
Persona non grata forever. That is the picture. No Scientologist would ever listen to their lies as they know the truth. That's fair. Instead, those Scientologists have left and continue to leave. Mr. Miscavige has helped every single Scientologist achieve personal betterment with Scientology. There are many people who would beg to differ. He has brought the church to a place in the world today where anyone can stand up proud to be a Scientologist and part of this incredible growing movement. I declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct. Executed this 28th day of July, 2009, Jennifer Linson.
Crazy, guys. Crazy. This is a tactic that Scientology, I want to say over the last 2 decades, this is a very, very common practice for Sea Org members to sign affidavits that are complete and utter fiction. There during and this is the video that we're going to show in the part 2 that we're going to do, guys. But this affidavit was sent to CNN when Anderson Cooper did a story on Scientology, and the name, I want to say it's called The History of Violence.
Yep.
Scientology, A History of Violence.
Yeah, it was a 6-part series.
Yeah. And so Jenny Linson, um, Marty Rathbun's wife, Ann Rathbun, Kathy Hawkins, and Rinder. What was
Kathy Bernardini.
Kathy Rinder, Kathy Bernardini? These four went on uh, Anderson Cooper's show, and they trash talked about their ex-husbands, who are all now ex-Scientologists and declared suppressives, and they became the weird thing about this is that it's obvious that they were coached on what they were supposed to say, because these men had all been assaulted by David Miscavige. And so they brought the wives on to say that they knew every inch of their husbands' bodies, and they never saw any bruises or any signs that there was some sort of violence. But I want to say during each part, most of these females that were on the show, that participated in the show, they uttered the words, "I knew every inch of him." And so they became known as the inch wives on the
Mm-hmm.
internet, because they all knew every inch of their husbands. Anyway, so yeah,
And
that is,
there's no doubt, by the way, that that statement was concocted by none other than David Miscavige himself. I absolutely guarantee it.
and I absolutely guarantee that every single one of those women either knew their husband had been assaulted by David Miscavige, or they were there when it happened,
Right.
because David Miscavige loved to beat up a dude while his wife or whatever was around there, because that was him showing how he was the dominant alpha male of the property.
Yep.
Um, but we will definitely, if you guys, so we know of a bunch of different videos of Jenny that we've got together. If we tried to show everything that we showed today and show all of those videos, this would be a 3-hour video. So we're decided to break this one into at least 2 parts. We'll see how much we get covered in part 2, if we need to do then a part 3. But yeah, stay tuned. If there's other executives, the other executives that I think we're going to talk about are Angie Blankenship. She's another one. Mark Yeager, Mark Ingber, Wendell Reynolds, uh,
Guillaume Leserve.
Guillaume Leserve. There's definitely at least 10 executives, Heber Gents. There's a bunch of executives that were famous enough that most Scientologists would know who they are. Unless they're really, really brand new Scientologists, they're going to know who these executives were. And if you guys know of new executives, because we've been gone for a minute from Scientology.
19 years to be specific.
Yeah, but we know of all the craziness that was happening with the international executives. There might be Los Angeles executives, or Clearwater executives, or even European, like what they call the Continental Liaison Organizations, or the CMO in the different cons. Um, we would hear about some of those people, and a lot of times those were people that used to be at the base, and they were David Miscavige's loyal people at the international headquarters. And then he would say, okay, you're going to go to this continent and you're going to run things for me there. And so a lot of these executives used to be at the international headquarters, and then were sent out to these far-flung places to be David Miscavige's eyes and ears on the ground in that country or that location of the United States.
Yeah. Another one we should do is Barbara Ruiz, because she was vanished completely because of the fact that she was one of Shelley Miscavige's closest friends.
Yeah, that's true. She disappeared very shortly after Shelley did. But all of the rumors that I'm hearing were that she left the Sea Organization.
Right.
She didn't just go get sent off somewhere. She was like GTFO right out of there. And there's a lot of other people. If you know of somebody, by the way, that's under the radar, or if you're somebody that's out under the radar, and you you want to know about a specific person, write to us. We don't have to give out anybody your info or anything like that. But if you have information that you think we should have, then go to the Blown for Good website and go to the contact page, and you can just tell us what you want to tell us. Did I forget anything?
Nope, that
If you
covers
want,
it.
if you want to hear the second part of Jenny Linson, the next involvement on this, installment on this, then click the subscribe button and the bell notification, and that way you'll get notified when we're going to do another one of these. We're going to try to do more sort of these type of videos that people are asking for, and we're going to do our Scientology Private Eyes series. We're going to do keep doing Scientology stories. We're going to try to keep up the content that that you guys are asking for and that you guys are watching. And yeah, this was good. Thanks, babe. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Until next time, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to help support the channel, feel free to check out the merch store link in the description. We have Hail Xenu, Xenu is my homeboy, and BFG branded mouse pads, shirts, mugs, all sorts of other stuff in there that helps us to bring you new content on a regular basis. You can also pick up a copy of my book, Blown for Good, Behind the Iron Curtain of Scientology, in hardback, Kindle, and Audible versions as well. There's also a link to our podcast, and you can get that on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to watch another video, you can click on this link right here, or you could click on this one here, or you can click on the subscribe button right here. Thanks a lot. Until next time.